right, good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Dr. Sakinah Davis. I'm an assistant professor of voice here at Xavier University of Louisiana, and I direct the opera workshop. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the second annual HBCU Opera and Musical Theater Collective Virtual Forum. Before we get started, I'd like to make a couple of acknowledgments. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Xavier University of Louisiana Department of Music and our department chair, Dr. Marcus Ballard. I'd also like to welcome you on behalf of our president, Dr. Renaud Verrett, as well as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Anderson Sundamaya, and they thankfully are sponsoring us for part of this forum, and also thank you to our partner, Opera America. I welcome you all to this session, and I will turn it over to our collective president, Dr. Phyllis Lewis-Hale.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this collective forum that we are so excited to have you here. And I am Dr. Phyllis Lewis-Hale. I am assistant professor of voice and director of opera musical theater at Jackson State University. And this idea, just to give you a little background about this collective, we started about a year ago, a little over a year ago, talking about how we as HBCUs can come together collectively to enhance our skills, enhance our resources, and to strengthen the opportunities that we have for our students. We want to make sure they can get some real world experience. We don't have the resources, some of the institutions. We thought that collectively we could come together and put our thoughts and best practices together and help one another to achieve goals together that will also enhance our students' opportunities for having better success and get into graduate programs, into apprenticeship programs, and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't just sit on our hands and say, we don't have enough money to do this or that. Let's find ways that we can move forward, gain some resources collectively. And so therefore, Xavier University, Jackson State University, Alcorn, at the time last year, Park Atlanta, Morgan State, we all collectively got together and talked about these things and said, why don't we do something that we feel that we can have a sustainable effect? But the conversation had to start. So last year, Jackson State University hosted the first forum, and here we are today with our second forum. And our goal is to make sure that we can talk about how we can move forward collectively, creating resources for our students. And I would love to see this collective create an HBCU Summer Opera and Musical Theater Festival, to where our students, the instrumental students, as well as vocal students, art students, can all come together and make something grand that our students can look back upon and say, when I was at my HBCU, I received this type of training in my summer studies. I got a chance to sing with an orchestra. I got a chance to work with a vocal coach. These things we don't always have accessible to us right now. We hope that via this collective, we can start finding best practices to get to where we want to be, and that our students can have something that they can count on. And when they leave here, they're always competitive, but they're in better shape to have real world experience before they leave our campuses. So without any further ado, I want to thank you all for being here. We're excited, and we want to make sure that you share your thoughts. Don't be shy. Your thoughts are what we're looking for, and your thoughts and sustainable friendships and collective relationships are what we're looking for as well. So Dr. Davis, I'll turn it back over to you. Welcome everyone, and let's have a great day of exchanging ideas and moving forward. Thank you.
We're so glad that you could all join us today. Our afternoon sessions are public. We have some private morning sessions, and now we will go till 5 o'clock Eastern time with our public sessions. We're excited to have all of you with us, and we have a great lineup of sessions this afternoon. We're going to start with our session about opera collaborations with HBCUs. The first collaboration we're going to talk about is the Nashville Opera HBCU Fellowship, which is between Nashville Opera, Fisk University, and Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. The two program managers for this initiative are Patrick Daly and Gwendolyn Brown. Patrick Daly has been described as possessing a powerful and elegant countertenor voice, and he's a vocal standout. He has appeared with the Grand Rapids Symphony, Opera Memphis, Pacific Opera Project, Tête-à-Tête New Opera Festival, Austin Baroque Orchestra, Shreveport Opera, Opera Louisiana, Woodhouse Opera Festival in the UK, Il Festival de Opera Barocca del Ballo Horazione in Brazil, among many others. One of the things I'm impressed with about Patrick is that he is also an administrator. He's a graduate of both Morgan State University and Boston University, professor of voice at Tennessee State University, where he established what began as the Big Blue Opera initiatives, also now the Tigre Opera Creation Lab and the Harry T. Burleigh Spirituals Festival. Additionally, he is the founding director of the W. Prim Singers and co-founder of the Progressive Historical Performance Ensemble, Early Music City. Mr. Daly serves on Opera America's Learning and Leadership Council and as president of the International Florence Prize Festival, Prize Fest. Thank you so much for being with us today, Patrick. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Gwendolyn Brown. Gwendolyn and I have known each other for years. She has an amazing contralto voice. Her career includes performances in opera, symphonic music, classical art song, and spirituals, as well as the contemporary and the avant-garde. She has performed in many large opera houses, Lyric Opera of Chicago, Washington National Opera, Seattle Opera, New Orleans Opera, just to name a few. As professor of voice, Ms. Brown participates in programs for undergraduate young artist vocalist development and performance, including the National Opera HBCU initiative, which we'll talk about today, Shared Voices sponsored by the Niece Grace Foundation, and the Coalition of African American Performing Artists, that's CAPA, and the 105 Voices of History. Thank you so much for being with us, both Patrick and Gwendolyn. Patrick, my question is to you. What is the Nashville Opera HBCU Fellowship, and how did it get started?
Yes. So again, thank you, Pam, and thank you to this incredible team for this invitation. So the Nashville Opera HBCU Fellowship is a program that is designed between these three institutions, Fisk University, Tennessee State University, and of course, Nashville Opera, to sort of bridge the gap on opportunities, access into the operatic field. And I will say, though we've gone through a little bit of a rebrand and a name change, the Big Blue Opera Initiatives is still a thing. And part of, and I will say there's a linkage there, but there's but they are definitely different programs. The Big Blue Opera Initiatives is the infrastructure that we set up and we established at Tennessee State, which is the Big Blue Opera Initiatives being an outreach, performance, training, fundraising program for the vocal community of Tennessee State, area and regional HBCUs, underrepresented communities in the arts, to sort of reframe what opera is and who it's for. And so with that, we have the W. Crim Singers, the ensemble and residents of the Big Blue Opera Initiatives, our annual Harry T. Burleigh Spirituals Festival, and a guest artist lecture and residence and master series that we've done. So part of the sort of establishment of the HBCU Fellowship Program with Nashville Opera really came as a result of Nashville Opera seeing the infrastructure that we had in place. Because of the Crim Singers, and the Crim Singers is a collective, there's a pilot on our roster, there are about 80 singers, all with the exception of maybe 2 who are all African American, and the others the other 2 are Latinx. So so it's a large aggregation of BIPOC singers in the city. And what happened was and of course with that also being that we had this Masterclass series that we had brought in different artists before. And some of the Masterclass projects that we had done had included invitations and partnerships with Fisk University as well as Lane College. So they saw that, okay, well, there's an infrastructure here. Nashville Opera was actually preparing to do, this is pre-pandemic, of course, pre-shutdown. Nashville Opera was preparing for another venture. And of course, with this venture required a very substantial Black cast. So they came and said, oh, hey, we want to partner with you all for this venture. but we also want to extend it. And I think that they were like, there's ways that we can extend it to really make it worth you all's while. With that happening, we were like, sure, let's go forward with it, because again, we have the infrastructure in place. We're excited about it. Of course, the shutdown shifts it, but now the setup and the plans are still there, and we still need to implement it. So what do we do? That came about in conversation between Tennessee State and the company, and eventually pulling into bringing Fisk in as well, and saying, how can we take advantage of what's here? And with this being the case, even though we're going to be virtual, even though it's going to have to shift, we're still going to create something that is going to be impactful for these students. So we, again, in conversation with the three institutions, myself, Gwen, Professor Brown, and the National Opera team, we were able to come up with this. And so we said what we wanted to ensure was, yes, we want to have a program that includes performance, of course, performance and education for the stage, sure. However, what we have to be very real about is that everybody's going to be a performer. And what we're also seeing, and what we do know in this field, is that there are so many people who have been great singers and have had great careers, and they shifted into administration. We're so set on in the field overall, we're so set on making great performers that we don't really talk about the business. And so we have to really ensure that. So we wanted to have conversations and set up infrastructure and set up programming that included performance, but also the business and various areas of the field, so that students, if they wanted to, if they could sing, that's great. Nobody's stopping you from singing. But if you also want to be the administrator, and I think too, setting up a space where young people can feel like they are capable of any and everything. I'm often told, oh, you can't wear, I was told in high school and college, you can't wear those hats. And I'm like, yeah, say that to me again. So we have to really set it up that you can wear all the hats. You can be the singer, you can be the administrator, you can be the creator, you can be the producer. And that is one thing that we really were able to pride ourselves on. The additional part was not just having interactions with the field per se, but also being able to ensure that the students from these two institutions that don't, even though we're down the street from each other, don't really get to interact. They're going to interact very much consistently. They're going to, we had our Zooms, we had our pre-conversations, and then we had our post-conversations, and we were able to really hash things out and answer a lot of good questions and build true community. And as a result, what we saw through the process, and I know that's going to be a question that come up later, but as a result that we saw through the process, we saw students that were way more confident as performers, as well as confident in the options that they had post graduation from our institutions. And we're actually seeing that manifest now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that background and that overall outline of the program. Gwen, anecdotally, just, not necessarily digging into the research yet, but just what have you been hearing from the students and from the faculty and from staff members about the benefits of this program in the first couple of years of its existence?
Well, first of all, and by the way, thank you for inviting us both to this. From the students, not just hearing their actual words, but seeing the results itself. What we usually do is we have a before video that starts off each academic session, and then the after. And we are seeing so much improvement. The students tell me about the master classes, particularly the ones at Fisk. And I ask them, so how did you feel about the master class? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Ms. Brown. Because it's now giving them that experience of being able to perform, being able to be taught, being able to have those resources available to them. It has given them the confidence to even apply for upper tier graduate school levels, in which two of my former students who are part of this collective, namely Anastasia Rainbow and Courtney Towns, are in upper level undergraduate graduate programs for their studies. It's giving them the confidence to get out there and perform, to get used to what a masterclass looks like, for example, so they know how to interact with that masterclass technician and not only be able to interact, but be confident in knowing that what Patrick and myself and other professors at our institutions are doing is actually making an impact on what they are doing. From the professor's standpoint, the professors, now I'm the only voice teacher at Fisk University. I'm not exactly like at Patrick where they have about, I think 4 or 5 of you guys there, but I'm the only one at Fisk. But my other professors in music, they're saying that, man, we're hearing the voice come out. We're seeing that person perform. One of my students in particular this semester, she just finished her senior recital on Tuesday. And Patrick, you would have loved to have seen her senior recital. It was amazing how she just all of a sudden became all of this and diva and expressive. And I was like, wow, look at what she's doing now. So we're seeing that, but also the questions that Patrick and I get from the students who have been part as well as currently are part. Those questions about this is how I'm planning on doing my career. How did you do this? Or what obstacles did you have in your way? Also, the demystification of letting students know that, yeah, there's a lot of us in this career. There's a lot of us in this career that are succeeding, successful, whether it's on the stage, behind the scenes, in the academia, etc. So they're feeling that confidence in knowing that this is, and they're not alone. They're feeling that confidence. And that's something that we want to, that's what I would love to continue to build on. I'm sure Patrick is the same, to build more and involve more students in this, because we want them to know that this is not just some selective group of people because they're opera singers or musical theater. And by the way, we've involved a lot of musical theater into the structure as well. We have students who just love this musical theater thing, and I have a few Broadway babies as well. So this is something that we're working on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Gwen. We're going to end this section, this section of the session with the Nashville Opera HBCU Fellowship by talking about the research part of it. Patrick, can you explain what the research aspect of it was and why there was research that was done? Gwen just talked about a little bit about the before and the after, but can you go into that a little bit more?
Certainly. And my goodness, I cannot remember the name of the company at this moment, but if I'm not mistaken, part of the reason why we were able to push forward with the initiative in the form that we did is because, again, there were funds there. It came from a grant. If I'm not mistaken,
Opera America contributed to that too.
Opera America contributed to the grant, the NEA. So there was a lot of
civic practice grant, I think.
So, yes. Yeah. So we have these things, and so part of the grant was also to ensure that there was, that there was information and there was feedback tangible to what we were doing. So that went along with, yes, having the pre and post videos, as well as the pre and post talks, which initially the person from the company joined in, and then she was like, I'm actually going to step back and let you all have the freedom. We'll, you all will record it, but let you all have the freedom to speak freely, so we don't just see some random black box in the corner. But that allowed for, thank you, Hannah Marco from Nashville Opera actually was able to give us that in the comments. So that was ACT research out of Minnesota, led by Ava Yang. Again, absolutely wonderful. So that allowed for the responses to go into, what needs to be reported back in terms of the grant. We need to know that it's working. As well as, so like, yes, the tangent or the things of performance, sure, we want to know that the kids are singing better, but we need to know that that their worldview has expanded, as well as seeing again, what they're actually going to do with that new expanded worldview. So we're talking about students going to graduate school. We're talking about students who are now in young artist programs and winning competitions, right? So we're talking about students that are now interns, you know, at National Opera or any other company or other arts institutions in the city or around the country. That's what we needed to see, and that data really let that be very clear. And it became sort of and it can be rather a sort of a marker for the industry of what to do. I will say that, you know, again, that first year, we were making it go as we went, because we're in a new space, right? None of us knew what Zoom was. A pandemic shut down. What does that look like? How do you do master classes virtually? But I think that we really hit a flow in some really powerful ways, and that research component allowed us to really see on paper what some of the best practices are for the field going forward.
Fantastic. I love this. And we have spoken about this before, and I wish we had more time to talk about it. I'm going to leave this initiative now because I want to cover all of the initiatives, and we also would love to have some questions at the end. Thank you so much for this information. We're going to move on now to LA Opera's HBCU Opera Careers Comprehensive. We have tenor Russell Thomas, an artist in residence at LA Opera, on the line with us. Wonderful. So Russell Thomas, with a heroically shining tone of exceptional clarity and precision and a gorgeously burnished power, is an American tenor who uses his signature elegance and intensity to create vivid character portrayals of the world's most important stages. In the 2022 season, Mr. Thomas performs 3 Verdi title roles in major international venues, appearing as Ernani at Lyric Opera of Chicago, as Don Carlo at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and as Othello at Los Angeles Opera. He also returns to the Royal Opera House at Covent Garden as Calaf in Turandot, and makes his highly anticipated Paris Opera debut as Don Alvaro in La Forza del Destino. During the 2020-2021 season, Mr. Thomas began his tenure as artist in residence at LA Opera, where he plays a substantial role in artistic planning and casting. In addition to hosting and curating the company's After Hours recital series, he has spearheaded new training programs designed to serve outstanding singers from historically Black colleges and universities and Los Angeles public high school students from underserved communities. Welcome, Russell Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you. What is the program and what made you think to create it?
I don't come from an HBCU culture, but a lot of my friends do. The program is twofold. Some of the same things that Patrick was talking about. Half of the class is their virtual classes. Tennis season, half of the class is performance-based. The students record themselves singing a song that either they are doing at school or assigned by their professors, or something that we suggested they may want to learn. We talk to them about the performance of it. We give them coachings with LA Opera music staff. That's about, the program is like 3 hours. So that's about an hour and a half of it. The other half of it, we invite people from the industry, from the Metropolitan Opera, from large opera companies, small opera companies, all around to talk to them about casting and planning, PR, marketing, development. Basically, they're learning about the singing craft, and they're also learning about what other jobs there are in the building. And how they may want to play a role in these jobs. So for instance, our next and last class for this season is on April 1st, and the guests will be general directors from various companies. We've had, Florida Grand Opera has their general director has committed, Houston Grand Opera general director has committed, and we're trying to get others. And basically what they do is they tell them about how they got involved in opera and what it is in that job, that job entails. I've been singing professionally now since young artist programs for 23 years. And some of these jobs, I had no clue what they did. So it was important for me to make sure that other young singers know what people do in the building. And so that's essentially what the program is. It's half performance-based and half getting to know what other jobs there are available. As Patrick said, not everyone will be a singer. So they need to know that there's a place for them in classical music and nonprofit. And that's what that second half of the program is.
Excellent, excellent. This is just a win-win-win-win type of initiative. And I'm thinking about the fact that even if someone does pursue a long-term performing career specifically, knowing who to talk to in the opera company about this issue or that issue, knowing who's handling publicity, who's handling fundraising in the development department, you know, who do I go to about some kind of housing issue in artistic operations? And then we are finding in research that most performers don't just have one avenue of income, and sometimes you need to self-produce, maybe start your own company during the times when you're not getting hired for whatever reason, you know. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And we've had people come and speak to them who have done these in their own producing of their own works. For instance, Beth Morrison from Beth Morrison Projects, who created her own sort of avenue of new music. Angela Brown came and spoke to them about her self-started initiatives with opera from a sister's point of view, and the new version that she's doing now with young singers, so they could see that if you don't get in that door, you can create your own door to walk through. And that was very important to me as well. So yeah, there are multiple avenues there. It is a win-win situation, I think, because they are learning about it. And some of the students have said at the end of the first, we're ending our second cohort next in a couple of weeks, but some of them have reached out to some of the guests about internships, working at their companies, getting to learn about different things. And I, as professor of music at Indiana University, have recruited some of them to come for grad school. Some of them are Dr. Hale's former students that are now my students at IU. So I've reached out to them and learned about those students through this program as well. And that has been for me, that has been the greatest part, getting to know them and then coming to work with them and seeing them on stage in full operas at IU, and seeing some of them going into internships at opera companies, large and small, around the country, because they realize that, oh, I would really love to work in education and outreach, and oh, I would really love to raise money. I can do that job. You know, these are things that people have learned through this process that they would be interested in outside of singing. And that has been a huge win for all of us.
Fantastic. I have one last question before we move on to the next initiative. Do you have any words of advice for other people who are interested in perhaps starting a collaboration with an HBCU or starting some kind of initiative like this for artists? What are the first steps? Where do you start when you have that idea? We should do this. How am I going to do that? How do you start?
Well, I didn't have any guidance in that respect, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you, frustratingly, I sat down for a few days and I went through every single HBCU that had a website. And I went through every single thing about music and voice and humanities dean and program directors. And I wrote down all of their email addresses, and I emailed, I think, 87 people or 82 people, and I got back 7 responses. So that was my experience. So I'm not necessarily partnering with the HBCUs. We're trying to do that. I even had the LA Opera rather send an associate to visit some HBCUs to hear their singers, talk to them about the program and talk to them about their future. And that, I think, was useful, but I couldn't give that advice. I wanted to do it the right way, which I thought was to reach out directly to these HBCUs and say, hey, I'm thinking about this program. And I wrote a long email. I'm thinking about this program. I would really love to partner with you guys. You know, how should I do it? In all fairness, it was during, the pandemic. I don't know who was on email and who was not on email, but all of this sort of came about in 2020, and it's all virtual. And I thought a lot of people are maybe not interested in continuing to do virtual things. And maybe that's why I didn't get responses, because I wrote them all personally. not sort of a form letter, but I wrote, 82 different emails to people. But I think that is the way to start it. I would reach, and what I did was I reached directly to HBCUs. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? So that is the way I think people should do it. I don't come from that culture, as I said, but I think we should go directly to the HBCUs and say, hey, what do you need? I'm thinking about this. What do you do?
Great idea. Great idea. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a commercial right here for the HBCU Opera and Musical Theater Collective. Now that we know that there is a group of schools with opera theater programs and students who are interested in opera, we have fantastic band programs at a lot of HBCUs. We have fantastic choral programs. We don't always know where the opera scenes and opera theater producing HBCUs are. Ding, 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 ding. This group who's doing this forum today, now people know where to go if they would like to try a collaboration with an HBCU opera theater and musical theater department. Thank you so much, Russell Thomas. We have one last question before I move on to the next initiative. Since this is a virtual program and students from all over the country could apply, what is the application process? And could you put a link in the chat and we can share that also later?
I will send you that link. I don't have prepared for them right now, but what it is in the spring, we reach out, we open new application processes. We send things out to all the schools. We send emails out. We send social media adverts out, and students send a recording of them singing an aria or a song of their choosing. We don't tell them what to sing, and we select 10 students to be a part of this program. And we started in the fall and go through, and they have weekly, like a 30 to 45 minute coaching every week with a member of the LA Opera staff. So that to me, I think is a plus, because and language classes as well. We pay for them to have a language class of their choosing as well.
Very, very important. And sounds like a great, great program. Thank you for joining us, Russell.
Thank you.
Yes, please stay on, because if we have time at the end, we're going to open it up to questions and people may have questions.
Absolutely.
We're going to move on. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next initiative, which is the Shared Voices initiative from the Denise Graves Foundation. And we have Simone Brown with us here today. So Simone Brown is a Maryland native with both a Bachelor of Music and a Master of Music from Xavier University of Louisiana and Peabody Conservatory. Simone was last seen on the operatic stage with Charlottesville Opera in The Sound of Music and The Merry Widow at the Kennedy Center with Opera Nova's Black History concerts, with Lyrica Classic Entertainment in their Organ Apotheosis virtual concert. Simone also performs as a princess with children's entertainment company that she founded, Black Princess Parties DMV, and you can follow her career at SimoneBrownSoprano.com. Simone, thank you so much for joining us. You are the social media manager for the Denise Graves Foundation, correct?
Yes, that and a bit of a bridge for our inaugural program, Shared Voices, as I was a graduate of both the HBCU and conservatory. I was very familiar with both of those experiences, so I get to be a part of that program development, get to work with the students, get to create some things with the students, which is always a lot of fun, and get to participate in the Shared Voices events as well.
Wonderful. Now, Shared Voices is a program that is new in the last year or two. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what it entails, how it got started, and what the goals of the program are?
Sure. So the foundation was also started during the pandemic, and we were really moved by, turn on my volume a little bit. That's distracting. We were really moved by Mary Cardwell Dawson's story, and really moved to find a way to get level the playing field. Conservatory is amazing for teaching vocal technique and really we know that's a tried and true way of creating opera singers, but the HBCUs are full of students with amazing voices, strong drive, but the music departments may not necessarily have all of that same access that a conservatory does have. So the idea behind Shared Voices was essentially sharing from those institutions. So providing generally for both of those students in more relative for the business. I think another panelist mentioned something about this as well, that we learn how to sing, we learn how to act, we're learning how to do our roles, but we're not necessarily learning a lot about how to create a career in the performing arts, what those things might look like, what those steps are. So we have industry days that we provide for our students. Our cohort members meet with each other on a regular basis to share ideas and information. And then we also facilitate just a bit of more education about African American composers, music. Those students are doing lecture recitals about this music that they're learning about. And at HBCU, we have a lot of access to this. We're very comfortable with know a lot about African American composers, operas, art song, etc. But at the conservatory, we're more focused on standard repertoire. So getting that information into the conservatory so that that repertoire can be a part of the standard repertoire. So when you're going to an audition or going to a competition and they're asking for an American art song, instead of pulling from what we think about as standard rep, we are looking at these African American composers and what they have in there as well. We are about, I want to say, 6 months in to our first cohort kind of program. So we had a launch at Howard University in the fall. Our students have been working on their capstone projects, which will be kind of talking about these African American composers. And in the meantime, they've been able to have master classes, and we're calling them industry days, where they are learning a little bit more about the business side of the business.
That's wonderful. Does it cost the students anything to be a part of this, or who funds this? Where do the resources come from?
It is funded by the foundation. Mm-hmm. So we have fundraised to produce this program, so it costs the students nothing. The students can participate completely free. All their industry days, all of their master classes, any coachings that they may have, that is covered by the foundation.
Fabulous. What is the application process like, and is there also an audition?
So our first year, we asked our consortium members to select students, but the coming year, we will have an audition process for our students that will be kind of similar to a young artist program, but we want to be looking for a couple of things, and we're actually, as we speak, forming that audition process for the upcoming year to really narrow down what we're looking for. But it will be, at the moment, specific to the consortium members that we currently have to bring in additional students. I think we're still in the planning phases. This was just year one, and we hope to eventually include more HBCUs, more conservatories. But to start, we'll be auditioning those students to kind of hear what they have to offer, and then mostly by video, similar to like a pre-screening kind of situation.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I have a special guest for us as well. I'm going to get out of the way. She's much more exciting than me.
It's Denise Graves of the Denise Graves Foundation.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Thank you so much.
So wonderful to be here. Hi, Alexis. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Phyllis and Gwendolyn. Hello. These are people I know. Russell. Who's that over there? Angela Simpson. All my friends.
Wonderful.
And Miss Jones, it's lovely to see you.
It's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for starting the Denise Graves Foundation and specifically the Shared Voices Initiative. This is really, really needed, and we appreciate these efforts. What would you like to say in general about the program or about what you've been learning through working with the students or anything?
We've been learning so much. And in fact, we're here now. The reason we're together is because we have a Shared Voices Summit going on where we're discussing all day how to improve and what we've learned from this inaugural year so far. And what we want to do is to look at so our Shared Voices program under the Denise Graves Foundation is a program that is an exchange between HBCUs and conservatories. And what we want to do is look at what each institution does well and create a program where students can take advantage of the strengths from each institution. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we love so much is that we know that the HBCUs provide a real nourishing ground for students where they really look after the whole individual. Mm-hmm. One of the things that the HBCUs do so well is that they incorporate already into their curriculum the teaching and the bringing in, the folding in of all of our American history, right? So that we know that, students are learning about, Nathaniel Dett and William Grant Still alongside Bach and Beethoven, that we don't have to create a special course for that. And what we want to be able to do is to look at those models and have that kind of learning and that kind of thinking brought into the conservatories as well. That if you've got a sight singing class, we know you can do that on Richard Smallwood's Total Praise just as well as you could do it, on some sort of Bach, little ditty. So, and what it is that we offer those students who are really serious and interested and incredibly gifted and want to make a footprint and a mark in this classical arts arena. We want, like so many organizations right now, to bring and to diversify this particular landscape, right? And we believe that it starts early in terms of how we in terms of how people start thinking. Mm-hmm. We want to see, we know that there are lots of programs right now, I believe, that are sort of adding in ethnomusicology courses and that sort of thing, that we're saying, absolutely, we have to do this, but we want to see this be systemic. We want to make sure that this is a part of also people's thinking when you ask for. Yesterday, we had a masterclass at Morgan State where we have a partnership with the Metropolitan Opera, and the Metropolitan Opera came down to do a masterclass at Morgan State with some of our Shared Voices cohort members. So good. We have a consortium of HBCUs. Did we freeze? We have a consortium of schools comprised of HBCUs and conservatories. And the original idea was that we would send HBCU students to conservatories and conservatory students to HBCUs. But then what happened, it was COVID, and we were trying to figure out, well, how can we address that? And so we came up with this idea of a digital calendar where every school would populate a calendar with activities. So if it was a choir rehearsal going on at Morgan State, if there was a master class going on at Dillard, there was some sort of jazz course being taught at Oberlin College, all the schools are in the consortium. And right now we've got Howard, Morgan State, Fisk, Morehouse, and we've got Juilliard, Manhattan School, Peabody Conservatory, and Oberlin College Conservatory. And the idea is that each institution offers something to this digital calendar to populate the calendar. So if it's Tuesday at 3:00, the students in our cohort can look at the digital calendar and say, what's going on at Fisk now? I can watch? What's going on at Juilliard right now that I can watch? What's happening at Morgan right now that I can watch? And then so that's happening. So they share the experience in that way. And on Saturdays, we offer something we call industry days, where we populate that calendar with people in the profession. It's mental wellness, with finance, whether it's Peter McClintock, who's a stage director of the Metropolitan Opera, whether it's Pierre Valet, who's a conductor, and they work individually with our students. And then a couple of times during the semester, we have these what we call intensives, where we bring the kids from the HBCUs and the kids from the conservatories together for a weekend of all kinds of different classes, all kinds of workshops. Sometimes that happens here at my farm where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's being held at a host school.
Mm-hmm.
Peabody Conservatory will host that immersion program for all of our artists in the fall. Morehouse will do that in the spring. And we bring everybody together to work, to learn from each other, to share with each other, so that we begin the Share Voices program is not just a program for the students, it's also for the faculty and for the administration.
Wonderful.
So that we affect this, we've got a three-pronged approach that we begin to, I'm here in Baltimore, where there's close proximity between Peabody Conservatory and Morgan State.
Yes.
But they've never met each other. They've never had anything with each other. And we see students from both. In my studio at Peabody Conservatory, I've had a lot of wonderful Morgan students. And so we've looked at the success, particularly of African American artists, and we've seen this historic connection between HBCUs and conservatories. If you look at Jesse Norman, if you look at Matawilda Dobbs, if you look at Robert McFerrin, if you look at Leontine Price, if you look at Leah Hawkins, if you look at Solomon Howard, all these people got their starts in HBCUs, which they have said to us, those whom we've had conversations with, was absolutely necessary for their success before they ventured into this other atmosphere and this other learning institution, that they needed that support, they needed that nurturing, they needed that bolstering before that they contribute their success to both of the institutions. So we wanted to look at what both do really well and create the next generation of emerging artists who has the advantage of taking the strengths from each institution. And we want to have that be effective on the level of the faculty and the administration as well, so that we begin to change the thinking about how we program, about, what we know that this is a profession which is sort of steeped in a lot of convention and a lot of tradition, and that tradition hasn't always included everyone, right? And that's what we want to do. We say we want to change that whole landscape, and we want to change the thinking of it too as well, so that we begin to incorporate and we understand that music is music, that art is art, that excellence is excellence, and that should have no barrier on anybody's race, on anybody's economic situation, or whatever. We want to look at great developing artists who have something important to say, and look at all of the great artists also from the past who have contributed to our cultural fabric, and that makes this classical vocal arts landscape what it is, but that have traditionally been left out of the telling of the story.
Yes.
So specifically, Shared Voices is a program that's addressing that. We have 3 other programs, another one called Hidden Voices, and another one called Generational Voices, which we have yet to launch, but we've launched Hidden Voices and we've launched Shared Voices. And that's coming along. We had a spot some weeks ago on Good Morning America I don't know if you were able to see that. We've been able to garner a lot of national press for the work that we're doing, because I was looking at my work at the HBCUs, looking at my work in the conservatories, looking at those gaps of vulnerabilities in both of those spaces, and really just listening to the young artists needed. I mean, when Alexis and I first started, this field has rapidly changed so quickly, and the things that my students come in and tell me, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. So it was really addressing that. What? It was really addressing that and really wanting to fill in those gaps there and create artists who would not just have a sort of fly-by-night, flash in the pan sort of career, but that would have staying power, so that we would become artists that were not hidden like those great artists like Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. Of course, it was a long time ago, but still, we know that there have been careers in which we see happen, and then there's no one sort of tracking and following and advising and nurturing the managers. And if there are any on the call, this is with my with all great respect, but a lot of times managers just book the careers. They're booking agents. There's no one who's really nurturing the career to say, wait a minute, let's not sing that yet. Let's look at the third act. Let's look at which houses we want to be at. Let's look at which others we ourselves with. Let's look at a composer with some special piece for you. And so we want to look at the entire artist.
Wonderful.
And all of our programs is addressing it. We're calling it artist shaping, so that we really look at those great artists and look at a well-rounded individual, and that we're asking the same in the industry.
Fantastic. Thank you
So,
so much for that summary. This has been amazing, and I'm so glad to learn about the programs that you have going at the Denise Graves Foundation. I love the concepts of the Shared Voices program. I'm going to use this as a pivot point, actually, when you say supporting the artists and also the nurturing environment, and not just an agent who's booking, but who's also guiding careers. The Coalition for African American Performing Artists that has the Masterclass series, and Angela Renee Simpson is on the line. Angela, can you join us? Dr. Davis, can you put Angela on the screen with us too? And she can start to talk about how their initiatives also support the artists overall and not just the voice. We're seeing that people don't want to be thought of as just their instrument and then discarded, but we want to enjoy it, embrace the whole artist. Angela, can you speak to that point with regard to what CAPA does in that respect?
Well, let me start from telling you how we started the Masterclass series.
Great.
I joined the board of directors from CAPA in 2013. And what I noticed that was there was no, CAPA worked with young children from grade school to high school, but there was no connection collegiately. So I asked them about that, and they had an emerging artists program. Well, coming from a non-HBCU, I went to the Aaron Copland School of Music in New York, and master classes were something that I didn't even know about until having to attend, not having, but got the opportunity to attend one with Leontine Price at Juilliard. So my idea, myself, the renowned tenor, Mr. George Shirley, who's also on our board, and tenor Izakaya Savage, who's on our board, we came up with the idea of offering master classes for free to HBCUs. We all know how much the fees are for a master class, and usually there's a recital attached to that. And it can go into the thousands of dollars. And I knew, just never even attending an HBCU, that a lot of schools don't have that budget to have these master classes. So we decided to reach out to HBCUs. The first one I think was Morgan, and Angela Brown was part of that, was our first, as we call music master, to do a master class there at Morgan. But we reached out to Fisk, we reached out to Howard, we reached out to Jackson State, we reached out to Tougaloo College in Mississippi. All of these schools that do not have that, most of them do not have this opportunity. And I cold called, emailed, and asked if they would like us to have a masterclass there. And the other thing is, main reason for the masterclass is of seeing people that look like us, letting these students know that there are people that look like us that are out there and actually doing this. So they had something to look up to, someone to aspire to be, and know if this person can do it, then I can do it too. So we started very small. We barely had any budget. I did most of the master classes in the beginning. So did Mr. Shirley. He would go out, fly out with me and do some master classes. And then we fortunately got a grant from National Endowment. And we were able to fly people in and take care of their expenses, hotels, airline, and all that, to fly them out to do it. And it became a rounding success. We started this in 2014, and then the pandemic hit. So then we needed to find a way to do this, to continue to do this and continue to reach out to these students. So we went virtual. We found a way. I observed another masterclass that took place during the day online, and it just clicked, and I said, we can do the same thing. So because all of these schools were shut down and closed, we reached out and said, if you have the equipment, we'll do it. And we live stream it. So we were able to have master classes so anyone could see across the country. Want to see on Facebook, want to see on YouTube Live. But yeah, and then having this initiative for us, we were able to tell these students that it was definitely possible to have a career. Definitely possible to have a career. The response has been, we went from 4 or 5 schools to about 25 schools now, HBCUs, with this program. And now that we're way eased out of the pandemic, we are going back in person now to have these master classes at these HBCUs. And it's been a very big passion project for me.
Thank you, Angela. I have seen via Zoom one of the master classes, and I was so impressed. And thank you for doing this. If anyone has a question and they'd like to put it in the chat, that would be great. And if we could put Angela Renee Simpson's bio on the screen while we're talking about the questions, that would be great too. I'm going to read the question from the chat. Do you have to be in college or a senior going into college to apply to be part of these initiatives? If so, are there any summer programs provided by HBCUs in opera, like an opera scenes workshop, that are available to high school students as well as undergraduates? Anyone here, do any of the initiatives here reach down into the high school level yet?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Kappa does. Okay.
Yes.
So can they find that on your website? What is your website, Angela?
It's Kappa, CAAPA.org.
Great. I'm just putting this in the chat. And I'm going to close out by reading your bio. And I want to thank all of the speakers from this session. You have been amazing. There's so much information, and we're going to go onto your websites to find out even more information about your initiatives. The critics the world over have proclaimed dramatic soprano Angela Renee Simpson's voice wonderfully powerful, fascinating, and thrilling. As an opera singer, Ms. Simpson has performed in many national and international opera houses, including San Francisco, Chicago Lyric, Seattle, Los Angeles, La Scala, and the Bastille Opera. On the concert stage, she has been a soloist with the Dallas Symphony, the New New York Pops Orchestra, the Icelandic Symphony, the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic, Rome's Accademia di Santa Cecilia, the Minnesota Orchestra, and she has appeared at Carnegie Hall. She has been on the board of directors for the nonprofit organization called CAPA, the Coalition of African Americans in the Performing Arts, since 2013, and has been the program director of the CAPA Masterclass series since its creation in 2014. We did not put Denise Graves' bio up. We could do that briefly. Ms. Graves, I saw you sing Carmen in Brooklyn decades ago. And I was sitting next to a singer boyfriend of mine. We're both singers. And you know how you go to a recital and it's always like at the beginning, what's this going to be like? And you just, it wasn't a Carmen, it was a recital. And we just relaxed into the sound of your tone. And we just enjoyed the whole program so much. It was beautiful, beautiful. Denise Graves continues to garner unparalleled popular. Go ahead.
I said I had a sinking feeling that you were going to date me by saying it was decades ago.
Well, I dated myself already too, though. So you were a child, I was a child. We were all children at the time.
Let's go with that.
Yes, okay. Denise Graves continues to garner unparalleled popular and critical acclaim in performances across 4 continents. USA Today identifies her as an operatic superstar of the 21st century, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution exclaims, "If the human voice has the power to move you, you will be moved by Denise Graves." Her career has taken her to the world's great opera houses and concert halls. The combination of her expressive, rich vocalism, elegant stage presence, and exciting theatrical abilities allows her to pursue a wide breadth of operatic portrayals and to delight audiences in concert and recital appearances. She joined the Dallas Symphony Orchestra for a concert honoring Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she made her directorial debut in a new production of Carmen at Minnesota Opera and the Glimmerlass Festival. I saw that Carmen production in Minnesota last May because Opera America was there for our conference, and it was wonderful. And I could tell a lot of research had been done with it with regard to the cultures and the dances. I was like, well, someone really did their research on this production. So bravo to you, both as a performer and as a director.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for
that production won Opera of the Year. I was just going to say, it won Production of the Year.
Fantastic.
So that was great.
That's got to feel great. That's going to feel great. Thank you, all of the speakers from this session, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking this time, and thank you for everyone who attended this session. We're going to go into the next session, which is a discussion about decolonizing opera. And we have Codizia Johnson as a moderator and Dr. Antonio Kyler as a moderator. Thank you, everyone.
So Pam, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Dr. Antonio Kyler, he is a professor of music and entrepreneurship and leadership in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance at the University of Michigan. He's the author of Access, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Cultural Organizations, Insights from the Careers of Executive Opera Managers of Color in the United States. He's also the editor of Arts Management, Cultural Policy, and the African Diaspora, and the author or co-author of 25 peer-reviewed articles that appear in the American Journal of Arts Management, Cultural Management, Science and Education, Cultural Trends, Enact Journal of Cultural Management and Policy, GIA Reader, Grant Professionals Association Journal, International Journal of Arts Management, International Journal of the Inclusive Museum, International Journal of Social, Political, and Community Agendas in the Arts, Journal of Arts Management, Journal of Cultural Research, Journal of Arts Management, Law and Policy, and the Polish Journal of Management Studies. He is the founder of Tyler Consulting, LLC, a Black-owned arts consultancy that helps cultural organizations maximize their performance and community relevance through access, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Codizia Johnson continues to forge dynamic and exciting spaces of shared belonging in arts and culture, gaining local and national recognition for her unique approach to fostering shared belonging as a speaker, space facilitator, collaborator, equity specialist, and creative. Through her original company culture framework, Quo combines her experience in the arts, business, organizational culture, and trauma-informed healing practices to cultivate a transformational, human-centered approach to working with employees, boards, artists, and communities to dismantle systems of oppression. I'm going to jump down. The Dallas local currently serves as the educator and community culture manager of the Dallas Opera, interim social justice advisor of Opera America, racial justice coach of Dallas Truth, racial healing and transformation, senior project consultant of Arts Consulting Group, Inc., and founder and space moderator of Black Administrators of Opera, who is a proud graduate of Prairie View A&M University and recently earned her Master's in Arts Administration from Goucher College. Thank you both for being with us today, and I'm going to leave this to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pam. It is good to see you. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, Antonio.
Hey, friend.
Welcome to this conversation. And also, thank you very much for having us to kind of present this work and what it means for decolonizing opera. I will start by sharing that I am coming to you from the land of the Caddo, Wichita, and Comanche Sovereign Nations. And this is known as Dallas, and also meaning that Dallas was built on stolen land with stolen labor. So as we look at what it means to decolonize and what it means to speak truth and what it means to celebrate truth in our identities, we'll continue to center that going forward. A bit more about myself. I am a descendant of enslaved people. I am the second oldest of four. And as I do this work, I bring in all of it. I am the daughter of a preacher. I am the daughter of a wonderful caregiver who is also one of about 20 or so. So I'm used to big families, big spaces. And as you heard, I am a graduate of the Prairie View A&M University. I cannot do Antonio justice. So Dr. Kyler, I would like for you to kind of share a bit more about yourself and who you are and how you're coming into the space today.
I am the descendant of enslaved Africans from Angola on my father's side, and from Liberia, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and Sierra Leone on my mother's side. I am also the son of a former pastor. My dad transitioned in 2008. My mother is an evangelist. I was born and raised in the Pentecostal church. And although I do not identify as a Christian today, I am a believer. I think there's a big difference. Mm-hmm. I'm very passionate about creative justice. That's what I try to study. That's what I try to teach. That's what I try to practice. And for me, creative justice is the manifestation of all historically and continuously oppressed peoples living creative and expressive lives on their own terms. And I'm writing a book about that right now. It tries to bring together my consulting practice, what I've been teaching and studying for a while, to help cultural organizations figure out how they can align with this practice. I'm also working on a study right now to investigate the effects of racism on the creative economy, right? Because one of the things that we're learning is that as much as I hate capitalism and the free market, one of the ways in which it's on our side is that it exacts a heavy toll for racism. It actually undercuts the racist earned income as well as those who are casualties of the racist behavior. And so actually it is more profitable to adopt an anti-racist praxis and ethos, but we have some challenges around that. So it's an opportunity, and I will yield my time back to my co-moderator.
Yielding your time, I dig it. And I appreciate that perspective as well. As we talk about decolonization, we're going to get into it a bit more. When we look at what it means to be impacted by colonialism, which is a policy or practice to take over or to control a particular country, nation, land through political control, and to exploit the spaces, the people, the wealth, the resources in an economic manner. That's very, academic, if you will. I know, but bringing it all down, they stealing stuff and they lying. Right? Or not even to bring it down, to bring it all over, right? To create a more horizontal view of it. It is the process in which people start to force others to redefine how they see the world, to redefine how they see themselves, to redefine how they see their roles in the economy and the society in a manner that benefits the colonizer. So we'll put that over there. Can you share your approach and some of your personal understandings of what it means to decolonize?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that come to mind when I hear the word decolonize is how Frantz Fanon suggested that decolonization in and of itself is always a violent event, right? He said that. And when you think about it, colonialism, colonization was violent. So decolonization should be no less violent. And it's so important. That's why you have, majority people, white folks, who have a problem with the decentering of themselves in narratives and opera and symphony orchestra and theater, because they've always been the center. And the funny thing to me about centering oneself is that there are particular ways in which one wants to be centered, and particular ways that one does not want to be centered.
Yeah.
When it comes to detailing the ways in which 15% of the world's population has continuously, historically inflicted its will on 85% of the world's population, right? We don't want to talk about that, right? To the point that we are considered woke if we do want to talk about what it is that we see and how we see who it benefits and who it does not benefit. So for me, decolonization has to be a proactive and measured meditation, like, because you got to do this every single day, pushing back against what we know and how we know it. Our, ethics, philosophies around ethics and value systems, as well as the philosophy of being.
Yeah.
And why we are here.
You hear me in my amen chorus. I was like, yeah, speak on it.
It's like church.
Like, talk about it. What I appreciate in so much of that is that philosophy of being. The challenge that we face in particular in society, and of course, opera is not exempt from society. Opera is a form of communication. It's a form of relationship. It's a form of expression. It is a form of storytelling in so many ways. It is a form of communicating what is and is not important, depending on what we pay attention to in whatever era of opera we're in. So when we look at the philosophy of being, what we also have to consider in decolonization is, as someone who is directly and disproportionately impacted in negative ways by colonialism, how I have to also start to shed the very mechanisms, the very survival tactics, the very actions, the very philosophies in some ways that I've created for myself to protect myself in this system. Decolonization is about imagining a new way of life and living it every single day, which means that if we do this, that means we must also acknowledge those things that we are holding that no longer serve us. We picked it up for a reason, don't get me wrong. We picked it up and it served us. Is it serving us now? And that can be a challenging thing for anyone, for any human being. And it overwhelms our nervous system in so many ways. So it can be challenging. What we find when we look at decolonizing opera is the opportunity to lean into the very core of what opera is. Opera being the plural of opus, which means many works. And if we have an art form that has the audacity to be many works, to combine many works, what does it mean when we actually expand it so that it can combine many stories, many experiences, many cultures, many languages, many more languages, right? Many more perspectives, many more imaginations, many more different ways of being. So when we look at decolonizing opera, we cannot dismiss the way that opera is so connected to colonialism. The ways that we learn in school, the ways that we learn about who, and I've been hearing a lot of conversations today about starting to expand the repertoire, expand who we're learning about, making sure we're learning about all of composers of multiple identities, in particular for this space, for Black composers, alongside all of the others, right? Alongside all of the normal ones or the regular ones, the ones we traditionally learn about. And as we're making an effort to expand, it also means that we get to expand what this art form means in the 21st century.
Mhm.
So I'll ask Dr. Kyler, can you share some of the ways you as a professor, as well as an artist, as a historian, can you share some of the things that you're seeing happening in opera right now that is working to undo that colonialist perspective?
Yeah, so first of all, having this conversation, we were talking about decolonization and opera when I was coming through school studying voice. And, you know, at the time, it was the mentality I felt was, when I reflect on it, was you get in, keep your head down, keep your mouth closed, keep your eyes on your back, and hope that you don't have a whole lot of harm to get, you know, over once you get on the other side, right? And so I appreciate being able to have this conversation, but also there are some other conversations that are happening, you know, at the opera company level, at Opera America's level. When I was working on my dissertation in 2007, I made a suggestion to Opera America back then about like collecting data on the field, right? And it took them a while to do it, but you know, you gotta give some encouragement where it is, right? Like they're doing it now. Because how can you actually mark progress and change if you don't have the courage to start telling yourself the truth about what is?
Mm-hmm.
So I applaud Opera America there, and it actually emboldens Opera America to better lead the field towards a decolonized practice, right? And I have to say, right, like I'm not saying chuck everything that we know in the garbage, but I am saying that we need to stop profiting off of identity-based harm. I have come to the conclusion that it's just not worth it, right? Like this conversation about Black, brown, red, yellow face. Why are we still having this conversation? Why, right? Like, and especially when people are saying this harms me this way. And it's not enough to say, oh, you're sensitive and you're emotional and you just need to get over it. No, because again, opera is a product of human cognition.
Yes.
So really, opera can be whatever we make it to be.
Yes.
And I think we can deconstruct opera as it is, reconstruct it so that it's less harmful and actually more impactful to more human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And I love that we can deconstruct and reconstruct opera in so many ways so that it is more impactful to human beings. And as we know, part of what decolonization is asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
It is questioning the narrative. It is being imaginative in so many ways about, well, what would it look like if I were centered in a way that is most meaningful to me? You mentioned it. Sometimes people want to be centered in certain ways. Sometimes people don't want to be, I don't want you talking about that. Put that over there. And what is it like to embrace the fullness of our humanity and to be courageous and to be compassionate in how we are telling stories, how we are finding creative solutions? And I appreciate you bringing up like this conversation about Blackface as we continue to kind of address some of these things. What colonialism, right, and what colonization does is very much in our era rooted in white supremacy culture, which prevents critical thinking skills. Racism does not make sense. And if you sit and spend the time, right, to put the things together, you will find that they don't make sense. And as we start to challenge the systems that we have just received and inherited, as we start to challenge those things, it really does allow us to say, well, where is that? How am I playing into it? How am I addressing it? How am I challenging it? How am I redefining it? And it is very similar to some of the practices and many of the practices that we have in opera and in the opera industry. A lot of the ways that I see shift happening and the decolonization of opera, as you mentioned, is the truth telling. Let's start with the truth, in that we have received a very select and short amount of information about opera, about composers, about communities. We have a very limited perspective of what opera is and what it means, right? There are many, many different genres of opera. We only really rock with a small amount because we only really rock with a small number of composers, because we only really rock with a small number of productions, because fill in the blank, right? Because of what that means for society and how opera and art forms have been used to continue to support that colonialism, right?
But that's one of the things I think is so interesting, Quo, is that it's this reductionist understanding of humanity. Right? It's too complex to add, opera from the Korean perspective, the South African perspective. It's just too complicated. We can't possibly do that. Right? Right.
And as I say, you've heard me say this before, in many places, opera, we put a hole in the wall and a hole in the ground and we play pretend. We got a whole industry out of it. Some of the most complex things and relationships that happen in many spaces happen in the operatic art form because of what is going on with performance, because of what is going on real time in creating those relationships and those meaningful moments between what is happening on stage, that show that happens backstage that we know, and what is happening with the audience and how we get all these people to this moment together. So you're not going to tell me that we can't find ways to ensure that we expand how we do opera, that we expand the stories we tell about opera. But in order to get there, we do have to acknowledge that decolonization has to happen. Colonialism in so many ways ensures that people are limited, that scarcity mindset, that people are restricted, that things that people hold prideful are stripped or adjusted so that it fits within a particular narrative that is not holistic, that is not truthful, and that is not humane. Colonization is dehumanizing, and decolonization allows us to engage deeper within our humanity. This is us, right? Centering our humanity in the work.
But see, and that's one of the things that I think decolonization invites, is a liberation that takes us down the path towards our humanity. And along that path, the process of moving towards decolonization rehumanizes us. The idea of scarcity of opportunity versus abundance of opportunity means that we are competing in these horrible ways against each other for that one role, to be displayed at the top 10 opera companies, right? To be put in up. And what if we could develop our own opera ecosystem that centers us and our stories, that's way more collaborative, right? And actually that is actually built on a foundation of collaboration versus competition, right? Which is actually more indigenous to the ways that we always existed as people of African descent.
Yes. Colonialism is 100% anti-indigenous, anti-Black, anti-community. And the ways that we start to decolonize opera is to focus and to have the audacity to know that we deserve to have spaces that focus on community, to have spaces that focus on our humanity, our dignity, our wholeness as we restore to wholeness, to healing in so many ways as well, to imagination, to utilizing that imagination to find all these creative ways to make sure that we are using this art form and being good stewards of the art form I had a conversation with Andrea Joy Pearson the other night, and she was saying that opera doesn't have to prove itself. Opera ain't got to prove itself. It's been around for centuries. It works. It still happens because it works. It is how we are navigating the business of opera, how we are navigating this false ownership of opera that starts to restrict opera being able to do what it does best.
And I think I love how you said that, because implicit in that is a choice. We could do it another way if we wanted to. I think if we're all working together, bringing our brilliance to the table, we can figure out another way to do this. But we have inherited a way of doing it. And so there are those people who will say, well, this is the only way to do it. And I push back on that and say, no, it's not. In fact, I do not want the next generation to inherit opera as it currently exists.
Yeah. Yes. And what is so beautiful about that is that they will not inherit it as it currently exists because of the work that is being done now, these conversations. We recently also finished the 2nd annual Racial Justice Opera Forum a couple of weeks ago, and what it means to center truth telling, to do so in a way that allows us to connect, to do so in a way that really allows us to address some internal and individual things, as well as collective organizational challenges, to look at policies, to look at practices, to look at field-wide standards, which we do not have, and how in developing them, we're not rushing to develop standards just to have them, but to develop actual tools to create the skills necessary to adjust and to be responsive in real time, to be creative, which is what opera calls for us to do and has been for so long, as we turned it into a type of commodity, benefits colonialism, right? As we turn it into a type of commodity, being able to push back against that and being able to do so as a community. So I mentioned the Racial Justice Opera Forum. We are also having changes in repertoire. We're having changes in the type of repertoire that is commissioned. You talked about this identity-based operatic work that is kind of rooted in trauma, which also stems from the fact that that was the only way our identities were allowed on stage, right? We're supposed to entertain no matter how much we hurt. And right now, in particular, Black artists, Black administrators are being called to do something others in the field are not being called to do. There's so much, there's such a focus, I'll say, on Black, quotation marks, right? Black operas or operas that center kind of Black identity. And so much of them are centered in trauma. So here we are having these brilliant Black performers doing brilliant work under such challenging circumstances. So not only do you need to do this well, you need to engage in this traumatic work. You need to engage in these stories that may not be your lived experience, but they're still addressing systemic oppression that is still happening. It has not been resolved. So there's resonance there. And I need you to do all of those things, show up, come to rehearsal, be professional, all blah, 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 and do it well. And I need you to do it well in front of everybody in the audience as well. So as we start to break down what is actually happening in these spaces, we get to celebrate these people out here doing some really meaningful work. These artists are out here doing something amazing. And when we center decolonizing our approach to the work, we then get to center celebration. Then we get to say, oh, well, what else can we do? If this is being done under these circumstances, imagine what can happen in a space where people are celebrated, in a space where people have autonomy over the stories they tell, and in a space where we not only prepare people to be in particular situations, in particular organizations, in particular companies, but we shift the companies themselves. So once again, like I said, those things that we pick up to survive ourselves, we don't have to walk in holding them, right? I can come into a space holistically as I am, because work is being done on the other end to make sure that the organizations, that the audience expectations, that the programming are going through decolonization and that are centering decolonization.
Yeah, and that's why I think Black opera leaders are so important, right? you know, we, especially when we have an understanding about the solidarity in our experiences as Black people, right? And we have this understanding of what's going on behind the scenes and the casting decisions, the community engagement, the audience development, and the sophisticated management of all of these practices,
Mm-hmm.
and what it means to actually decolonize them in service of developing an audience for Black opera attendees, but
Mm-hmm.
also creating space for Black opera creatives. To me, Black opera leaders and managers are central to the project of decolonization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then that caste system that places Black folks at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to race. And then, of course, we're doing the Sisyphean work to lift up everybody else and ourselves at the same time. I'd like for that to not come as a result of Black people being murdered. Like, I really like to see us get to a place where we don't have to witness Black life being taken from us for us to be making these efforts of transformation.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's beautiful that as we discuss what this means for HBCUs, because a lot of our expectation in what opera is and is supposed to be really does come through education.
Mm-hmm.
So as we decolonize the curriculum, as we decolonize the narratives, as we question the curriculum, we question the narrative, we redefine the curriculum, we redefine the narrative to center celebration of Blackness, to center celebration and the possibilities of what this means for us to do this work together, to center truth. This is not new. We have had elders who have paved the way in so many ways, and before them, others, right, who have paved the ways in order for them to move and in order for us to inherit what we have inherited as we pass on to generations after us. So understanding the value of speaking the truth to the legacy of Black folks and what that means for opera, especially in the United States. We cannot discuss opera without discussing Black folks, especially when our first city of opera was in New Orleans. Who you think was playing it? And at these 5 opera houses? Really? And we ain't talk about no Black people? Really? Really? How we do that?
I mean, in the 1830s, all of the opera that came into the country came through New Orleans.
Came through New Orleans.
I mean, seriously, because remember, the Metropolitan Opera was 1883.
Yeah.
Right? So the opera that was coming, even the first opera performed in the country was performed in Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston in 1735. We get to 1791 and we have our very first opera company, opera house, I'll say, opera house in the nation, New Orleans, right? So as we start to lean into truth, we start to get curious about the truths that are there but that are not told. It really does allow us to say, oh, wait a minute, we're missing some parts, and some of those parts look like me. Mm-hmm. And some of those parts look like you, and some of those parts look like these people over here, these people over there. Some of those parts will allow us to have a fuller chorus and a fuller sound of what opera is and what it can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will ask, can you share a bit more, and then we'll kind of go into breakout rooms, everybody, really quickly, so that we can put this into practice. Can you share how cultural identity can start to allow us to be leaders in this work, right? You talk about that in some of your literature, you talk about that in some of your research. How are we poised to be leaders in this change and leaders in the field through cultural identity, cultural heritage?
Yeah, I think our identities are points where interests can converge and diverge. And I also think that our identities are kind of doors that we can open into the art form. Mm-hmm. Particularly as we start experimenting with intersectionality. That's one of the things that I loved about fire shut up in my bones is that, you know, it's not just Blackness, but it's Blackness and a sexual orientation or affectional orientation, is what folks. And then there's also this element of disability kind of brought into it. And I think you can find these themes where, you know, for example, I've seen more operas by Black composers after the murder of George Floyd than I did before the murder of George Floyd. I saw one opera by a Black composer before George Floyd's murder in 2004, I believe it was, Nathan Davis's Just Above My Head, based on the novel by James Baldwin. And then after, you know, I've seen X, I've seen Fire Shut Up in My Bones, I've seen The Snowy Day, I've seen Omar, I've seen Fierce, you know. And so when I look at that body of work that I've actually observed, first of all, one of my hypotheses is that operas by Black composers invite Black audiences. Well, so the opera industry can no longer say, well, if we program this opera by a Black composer, it's not going to sell. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. Then, second of all, the stories are like, even if Blackness and the capaciousness and the elasticity of the Black identity is kind of the umbrella that brings in all of these other themes around like disability, class, affectional orientation, age, it makes for these rich stories that really, I think, speaks to the vastness of humanity.
Yes.
And then, you know, this excuse about like, well, I'm white and I can't connect to that story. And I'm like, you can't connect to the story of another human being?
Well, that's a deeper psychological and physiological conversation, Dr. Cotler.
Right. And does that speak to how your whiteness has dehumanized you in and of itself? Like you're colluding with whiteness, right? Because whiteness is like the devil, right?
Not the devil.
I mean, Mephistopheles, right? You know, Bowser, however you want to call it, right? So in the sense that you're making a deal with the devil for the advantages that whiteness is affording you, but you're never stopping to think about what are you missing out of one, and how is that collusion with whiteness, that relationship with whiteness, costing you?
And the deeper
dehumanizing you.
Yeah, deeper question is, how are we allowing it to do it for ourselves as well?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when we look at, especially in this era of colonization, it does center white supremacy culture, right? The fallacy of a superiority, the fallacy of race, because it's a construct, and then the fallacy of a racial human hierarchy. So we're going to make up this system of division, and then we're going to place it in a hierarchy. Someone's at the top, someone's at the bottom. And in order to do that, it requires dehumanization.
Yeah.
It requires lack of connection. It requires that people, even if they don't intentionally lean into it, but that people be impacted and influenced by the idea that your life, your value, your dignity, your human worth is more or less than mine.
I mean, but you know, we grew up in the church, right? And we know that they taught us the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. How is that not white supremacy culture? And the thing is, yes, people of the global majority are like its first targets. At the same time, where our interests converge with white folks is that they need to be trying to get free too. If you're only free because you feel like you got your knee on my neck, you ain't free.
You
ain't free either. So actually, if we partner together around our both of our liberation, that would be ideal. But if that's not what you want, then I'm gonna have to keep it moving and drag you along with me.
Or you can stay over there.
I mean,
it's this idea and this truth that decolonization benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Because it is liberation. And it allows all of us to be in spaces that really do center our identities, our humanity, and how we are in what we say right relationship, how we are in healthy relationships with one another. And then we really do get to lean into that vast creativity that comes with opera. Again, the audacity to play pretend. And we said we're putting all these art forms together, all of them, because we want to continue to tell stories. Even the concept of opera being Western European is from colonialism. Western Europe, Europe itself being one of the youngest kind of civilizations, people been singing and telling stories and doing art and theater, combining it together for a very long time, yeah. And the codification that we now know of, yes, comes from that, right? It's the Florentine Camerata, right? It comes from that space. The act of connecting through storytelling and combining multiple works, multiple methods and methodologies of expression is not new, right? And so neither is the fact that we belong in opera. Neither is the fact that our identities have always been a part of opera.
I love that too, because it invites us to interrogate the assumption that we don't. Like, you know, how can I not belong in opera, right? When there is a rich history of multiple people contributing to opera who look like me. Right?
Yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you for this conversation, Dr. Collar. I'm asked that you hang out just a bit longer. Everyone, we are now going to go into breakout rooms, because what I would like is for us to kind of be in practice in real time of decolonization. So as we go out into breakout rooms, I would just like for you to answer 2 I statements. What we're looking at is how we center and celebrate our Blackness in opera. And we are looking at how we would create opera through decolonized lenses, right? So your first I statement will be, I celebrate that I. Celebrate whatever you want about yourself. I celebrate that I take a nap every day because my ancestors work hard and I'm a rest. Because I take whatever you celebrate about yourself. And your second I statement will be, I would love to see, or I will create an opera about. Let that be about you. Let that be about your family. Let that be about your experiences. Starting to remove the barriers that say that you cannot is what allows us to decolonize, is what allows us to liberate. It's what allows us to lean into that creativity and that audacious imagination necessary for opera. So I'll put those are in the chat, thank you, and I will send those to the groups as well. All right, let us go out to our breakout rooms. We'll be there for maybe about 9 minutes or so, and then we'll go from there. Welcome back, everyone. I would love to know in the chat, what is something you celebrate about yourself? What is something that you celebrate about yourself? And I ask this question because decolonization means that we get to be imaginative. We get to celebrate ourselves. We get to center things about ourselves that may not be present in the narratives we receive. Decolonization allows us to allows us to allow opera to be all the things that it can be. It allows opera to be all the things. So put in the chat something that you celebrate about yourself, and put in the chat an opera you would love to see. Miss Angela, you had your hand up.
Oh, I thought when you said put in the chat, yes, I thought we were going to do all that. But the one thing I celebrate is the fact that I'm no longer in this opera business for the most part, that I can say and say how I feel about this business without any repercussions upon my career. That's what I celebrate.
I appreciate that. And I celebrate that I am in this business and can be in a space where I'm gonna say what I need to say. But I also acknowledge that people expect it from me.
I'm of a different generation than you. I'm a little bit older than you.
Yes, ma'am.
Way a little bit older. So
in that, I appreciate that because you carried that. I am in a position to be able to do that. It is 100% because you were careful about the things you said. You were careful about how you walked into the room. You were careful about how you represent Blackness. You were careful how you represent yourself as a Black woman and what that means to be in this industry. You paved the way for me to be able to sit here and look people in the face and be like, stop being racist.
Now, I will continue to be myself.
Yes,
that I would continue to be myself. I'm never going to change that when I walked into a room, walked into a rehearsal. But yeah, it's now it's time for talk. It's a lot of, now I have the opportunity to talk and help change it for the generations that are coming up behind me, to let them know the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this. And one of the things that decolonization also does is allow us, and I said it before, but it allows us to build on legacy. It allows us to appreciate it, to acknowledge it, because it means we have to look at truth, which means we have to research, which means we have to learn, and we have to appreciate and honor. It means we have to do the same for the work that is being done now, because then we're more mindful of what happens, right? For the next person who comes in, for the plethora of Black-led opera companies that we'll see in the nation in the next generation or so, because of the work that we're doing, because we're building on the work that has been done before us.
And my opera, I just want to say my opera is about being Black in the opera business.
Nice.
That'll be my opera. All right, thank you.
And I'll share mine. I'll share mine just to close out. I celebrate the fact that I have a big imagination. I am obnoxiously optimistic. And it comes across in multiple art forms. I'm a classically trained pianist, as I said, studied at Prairie View University, but also a spoken word artist. I make jewelry when I feel like it. Anything art, I got you. I sketch, I draw, all of these things. The opera that I would love to see is one of adventure, one of joy, one of what it means for imagination to take place and to shape worlds, which is what we get to do in opera anyway. I thank each and every one of you for allowing me to share space with you. I thank you for your work that you're doing in creating meaningful spaces for students and for this industry. And to students who are with us, thank you for joining us. Continue to travel along this path, knowing that you have a community ahead of you, behind you, to the left, to the right, surrounding you. I'm going to pass it back to Pam for any final thoughts. And thank you, Dr. Kyler, wherever you went. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kyler, and thank you, my friend Cordesia Johnson, for always bringing a rich and informative and authentic discussion to us. And we appreciate your gifts as a moderator and as a facilitator. We're going to take a 4-minute break. We have a wonderful virtual masterclass with Limmie Pulliam, the tenor, who was the first Black tenor to perform the role of Radames in Aida at the Metropolitan Opera. We're going to listen to some wonderful singers in a masterclass that starts at 3:30 Eastern time, which is in 4 minutes. So let's take a bio break. We can stretch, we can get a glass of water, we can check emails and text messages that seem to never want to stop. And we can come back in 4 minutes together and listen to this wonderful masterclass with these amazing young talent. Thank you so far for everything that you have contributed to today's wonderful forum. All of you who have been with us for session after session, we appreciate your energy and your engagement, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Limmie Pulliam. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lewis. How are you?
I'm fine. We are so delighted to have you here with us this afternoon. We are so excited. Our students are excited. The faculty are excited. Everybody's excited because this is a once, we're very lucky to have you here with us today. And I'll start off by reading a little bit about your bio here.
Okay.
Limmie Pulliam, tenor. Rising tenor Limmie Pulliam continues to thrill audiences with his captivating stage presence and his stentorian yet beautiful sound. Pulliam was recently praised by San Francisco Chronicle for his full-throated vocal power and intricate lyricism, with his recent debut at Livermore Valley Opera in Verdi's Otello. In December, Pulliam made his Metropolitan Opera debut as Radames in Aida, which also served as his role debut. He later performed Radames with Tulsa Opera for their 75th anniversary gala concert. Elsewhere during the season, he returns to the Cleveland Orchestra for his first performances as Dick Johnson in Puccini's La Fanciulla del West. Conducted by Franz Welser-Most, In concert, he debuts with the San Diego Symphony singing Verdi's Requiem and makes his Carnegie Hall debut performing The Ordering of Moses in collaboration with the Oberlin Conservatory, his alma mater. He also joins pianist Mark Markham for operatic greatest hits, concerts, and spiritual recitals with the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra and Delta Symphony. The 2021-22 season, he has been highlighted by his highly anticipated LA Opera debut as Mauricio in Verdi's Il Trovatore, where he was lauded by the Los Angeles Times for his healthy, focused, ringing tenor. He followed that with a successful role debut as Turitu in Mascagni's Cavalleria Rusticana with Vachon Opera. Upcoming performances include his company debut with the Livermore Valley Opera in the title role Verdi's Otello, his company debut in Fort Worth Opera's A Night of Black Excellence concert, and his rescheduled appearance with the Memphis Symphony Orchestra as a tenor soloist in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. He is set to take the stage once again as Verdi's Otello. Great. Well, thank you so much again, Limmie Pulliam, for joining us today. We have two singers for the masterclass today, and we will start with Emily Garcia, a student of Dr. Jamaica Mott at Prairie View A&M University. She will perform Don de Lieta from Puccini's La Bohème. And if we're ready, her accompanist is Dr. Marshall Davies. If we're ready, we'll get started with Emily Garcia.
It seems we're having some technical difficulties. Just hold on and bear with us for a second, some of the students.
In the meantime, Limmie Pulliam, tell us a little bit about what's happening with you right now and what's next. Still on mute.
There we are. Well, I'm currently have a little bit of downtime at the moment, and I'm home studying new music and learning new roles. Preparing next week, I'll be in Florida for Palm Sunday and be singing at a friend's church there. And then I'll be preparing for my role debut as Dick Johnson in La Fanciulla del West with the Cleveland Orchestra. After that, I'll be headed to, let's see, where am I going? To the Ojai Music Festival in Ojai, California, where I'll be taking part in a chamber work that has been commissioned off of the new opera Omar, written by Rhiannon Gittins and Michael Abels. They've put together I think a 50-minute chamber version of the opera that will be premiered at the Ojai Festival this summer. This fall, I'll be singing making my main stage debut at the Madison Opera, singing Cavaradossi and Tosca. And then I'll be jumping across the pond for a bit to do Verdi Requiem in Leipzig, Germany. And we'll be making a debut in Vienna as well with the Volksoper.
Wow, wow. Students, are you listening to how busy the life of a renowned singer can become? That's a wonderful busy. I think that's great. And since you're here with us at Masterclass, did you perform in many Masterclasses when you were a student?
I did. I did. I had the distinct pleasure of doing a couple of master classes. One with oh gosh, let's see, the one with the late Sylvia Olden Lee.
Oh,
who visited Oberlin while I was there, and then we had the opportunity to do one with the late great composer George Walker, who was also an Oberlin alum. And it was quite the experience because he and his sister kind of tag teamed on the master class, and that was my baptism on how to sing spirituals. It was
I love that.
From George Walker and his sister. Yeah.
Wow, Sylvia Olden Lee. She was my coach for many years when I lived in Philadelphia. I was teaching at Temple University, and she was my coach. Then we'd go to the grocery store together, and we'd go to different things. So she was such a landmark figure in my life, also. And really
a fountain of wisdom. And if you didn't want to know the truth, she was not the person you wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I was singing scripture, she said phony. She said being too sedity. you know, and I said, oh my gosh, whew. But you know what? She was real with me.
She
And
was.
that's why I'm able to do what I can do today, because she showed me
Mhm.
she said, how would your Aunt Hattie sing it? Or Grandma Hattie sing that?
Right.
You know, you don't proper it up and put all these T's and D's. And so I really appreciated her, and I still care what she shared with me today. But anyway, back to you. I really enjoy watching you sing and perform. I've been going through videos, and so my students say, can he come here? I said, well, I don't know about it. I said, we'd love that, but we'll get him virtual perhaps, but I don't know about in person. But just so excited about your singing and the Nessun Dorma, but they want to play that over and over and over. I have 3 verses, I have 3 concerts he's singing Nessun Dorma. Look at this one, look at that one. So what would you tell a young tenor? I have a couple of sophomores and juniors who want to sing that aria. What advice would you give them?
It is great to listen to other people sing it, but the idea is to make it your own, to take the time to work the piece. Don't feel like you have to sing it today or tomorrow or next week. It may not be your cup of tea right now, but take your time, let your voice do what it's going to do, let it grow, let it mature. But you know, it's always fun to listen to other people sing it, and then that inspires you to want to do it, and hopefully that inspires you to want to take it and really make it uniquely yours. That's the hard part, because there's so many great singers have come before us, and the recordings of them singing this aria, and it's such an iconic piece that you almost wonder, can one really make it their own anymore? And it's true, you really can. You just have to really look and delve into the music and bring your own life experiences to the table as you're preparing these pieces.
So tell me about Radames. How did that feel on that Met stage, embracing that character and bringing it to life?
It was, as I said, it was still the moment that I get chills every time I think about it, even now. To receive that phone call saying you're going on tonight is one that I think every young singer has dreamt of. And in that moment, I was, after the phone call, the first thing I did was I hung up the phone and I said a prayer.
Yes.
And then I called my mom and told her to call my siblings and let them know what was going on. And I went about preparing my day. So when I arrived at the theater, there were, the great thing about it is I was prepared for the moment.
Yes.
I had done the work. The staff at the Met had done the work to make sure I was prepared. So there were no nerves. It was a matter of I knew I had a job to do.
Get it done.
But there was still such a weight on my shoulders as you walk through those hallowed halls and you think about all of the other great singers who sacrificed and did so much so that you could be there. And how many of them, Miss Price, Miss Bumbry, Miss Verrett, Miss Norman, Mr. Estes, Mr. Shirley, how many of them walked that path as you're walking from your dressing room to the stage? It was, it's a moment you'll never forget. And to walk out on that stage and to have, to know you have the support of your colleagues, and and what can be a stressful situation and making a last minute debut. But the highlight for me came once the aria was done. That was the stressful part. Thankfully, you get to do it in the first 5 minutes of the opera. So once that was done, I was able to relax and have fun and enjoy the evening. And I had to keep reminding myself to take moments to just kind of take in what was going on around me, so that I could build those memories. And so going into, at the end of the night, it was it was the emotions just kind of overran as they said you're up, and had me walk from behind that gold curtain for the first time to receive applause. And in that moment, I couldn't help but think about everything that I had sacrificed, all that I had gone through, the professional highs, the personal losses, with the death of my father last year, and then the death of my eldest sister just a few weeks before my debut. It was just an emotional moment to know that they were there with me, and that they would be proud of what I had accomplished. Was just, yeah, it was a night I'll never forget.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. And I'm sure that the adrenaline is still going with you.
It does. You can't, it's one of those things you think about it now and it's just like, oh my God, well, you get those full body chills, and I hope that never goes away.
Oh, there's so much more you have coming up as a result of all this, so you don't have a chance to let it get old. It's still flourishing.
No, because you gotta get ready, stay ready for the next thing coming up.
Yeah. And did you do many vocal competitions throughout your early career?
I did not. I did probably less than 3 competitions during my undergraduate years. A funny story, I did the Met competition one time and never went back to do it again after the experience that I had.
Okay.
So it was one of those things that, competitions were never my strong point. Some people have had great success with competitions and have been able to kickstart their careers via the competition circuit. But for others like myself, it just, I did well. I've won several competitions since returning to singing, through the National Opera Association, the Marcello Giordani Foundation competition. But it was never something that I looked forward to doing. I did it because it was a means of being heard by different people, not for the sake of I think I can win. I went in thinking I could win, but that wasn't necessarily my goal. It was more about being heard by the panelists, who were often many of the gatekeepers for some wonderful organization, opera houses, orchestras, regional opera houses, things of that nature. So in that sense, it was very successful for me, not in the sense of actually winning many competitions, but I was heard by the right people.
Right.
So I won in a different sense,
Great. Well, that's great. And some students don't realize you don't have to do competitions, but it helps, but it's not necessary. I see that Emily is ready. Emily is ready now. Okay. So we will go ahead and have Emily come right out. Emily Garcia from Prairie View, student of Dr. J. McAmont.
Torna sola mi
Wow, brava, Emily. So,
Thank you.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's go back, start back at the beginning.
Okay.
Give me just a good 30-second synopsis of what you're singing here.
So in this moment, Mimi is speaking to Rodolfo about, basically it's kind of like me breaking up with him because he knows that I am sick, but he doesn't want to admit that. So I'm taking the courage to just call it off right here in this moment.
Okay. Okay, good. So he knows you're sick. You know you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
So can you, I love that this sounded like a very healthy Mimi to me. And it was beautiful. It was very beautiful. Our job is to create a character. So can we take it from the beginning and knowing that, at this point, Mimi is very sick. She's tubercular. She has tuberculosis.
Yes.
And that she may be struggling a bit, whether it's with her breath or whether it's, can you implement some of that into the characterization so that we get a sense of this illness that she's struggling with from the beginning? Okay. So, and yeah, let's just start with that, and let's just take it from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at the language just a bit.
Okay.
When you start out, it's donde lieta usci al tuo grido d'amore. Yes. Italian has its own kind of natural rhythm to it. So you want to, and especially with Puccini and Verdi, you have that leeway to kind of, sometimes you may have to slightly adjust the rhythm to fit the text. But I want you to also be careful of the text so that you don't linger too much on certain words like torna sol. So it's not sola, but sola. Okay.
Sola.
Torna sola, Mimi. Okay. And then you want to, and as you go into the al solitario nido, my lonely nest, you want to continue that thought, even if you take a breath after Mimi. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start one more time, but I want it to be, don't feel like you have to, we're still listed, pianissimo at the beginning. Don't feel like you have to give so much at the start, okay? Kind of pull it back
Okay.
and just pare it down just a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so as you'll find out, I'm a real stickler for language, because we're telling stories, so we have
Yes.
to emphasize the text and the language. So really, especially the word like ein tesser finti fior, use that double S to,
Okay.
okay, I need more S from you there.
Mhm.
And even more so, I think you can listen to the color of the introduction of piano. Listen to the colors that he's implementing, and let your vocal come out of that. Let that influence your vocal, okay? Because can you just play the introduction for me, sir?
Excuse me.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is, this music is familiar. Some of this music is used also in Mimi's first aria, but it's used in a different way here than it's used in the beginning of the opera. So you have that di da di da 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 donde lieta usci. It doesn't have to be you don't have to, it doesn't have to be so meaty at the beginning. Okay, just kind of make it more internalized at this point. Donde lieta usci al tuo grido d'amore, torna sola Mimi al solitario. The phrasing, how it has this kind of this ebb and flow of the phrasing. Okay, so again, listen to the introduction. Really kind of just bare minimum amount of sound at the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay. Addio, senza rancor. Ascolta, le poche robe adora che lasciai sparse.
Okay, one thing.
Yes.
So do you need that breath before lasciai sparse? Do you need that breath?
I probably don't, but I can try the whole phrase with one breath.
Okay. So let's try that again, starting at the addio, again, double consonant, addio. And this is another one of those things where you have to kind of slightly play a little mind trick with the text. As you see, the word is senza, but you notice as the text as it goes up in pitch, it almost makes the accent on the sa instead of sen. Okay, so addio senza. So you got to pull that back a little bit so that you don't want to hit that beat, the B flat there. Senza rancor. And then you have ascolta le poche robe tu. Move that phrase. I think you can move that phrase just a little bit, and that'll help you with not having to take that extra breath in the middle of that phrase.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Addio senza rancor. Ascolta le poche robiadona che lasciai sparse. Nella cassetta stan chiuse quel cerchetto d'oro, il libro di preghiere. Involgi tutto quanto in un grembiule manderò il portiere. Vada sotto il guanciale c'è la cuffietta rosa. Se vuoi serbarla,
Okay, I want you to try one thing for me. And it may be on my end, just coming through the speakers, that it sounded just slightly under for me on the B flat. Can we start back right before bada?
Yes.
And when you get to the build-up going up to the B flat, I noticed you kind of did this with it. I want you to kind of relax, just relax a little bit. And as you reach up to it, I want you to just take your hand and just give yourself a little lift. Remind yourself to, as you go up to the to the ricordo. Okay.
Yes, sir.
La ricordo d'amo. So just give yourself a reminder that you got to lift that up there a little bit, okay?
Yes, sir. Sotto il guanciale c'è la cuffietta rosa. Se
you hear that? Just
Yes.
it got there towards the end, and
Mhm.
you made a slight adjustment there towards the end where it kind of slipped into that pocket up there. Okay, can you
Yeah.
get that from the very beginning of that note?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, and don't feel like, be careful that you don't try to take up, that you get to bogged down in the seven. What can I have that G natural there? Don't get too bogged down there where you may have the tendency to want to take up too much weight.
Okay.
You don't
Yes,
want to
sir.
take up too much weight with that, okay? Vocal weight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right there.
Back to Bada or starting from there?
Bada is fine, yes.
Okay. Sotto il guanciale c'è la cuffietta rosa. Se vuoi serbarlo, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take a good breath.
That's okay. That's quite all right. That's quite all right. You want to try it again one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. But you had the right idea that first time on that first B flat. That was right in the pocket from the beginning.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's just start right on Bada, right on it.
Okay. Sotto il guanciale c'è la cuffietta rosa. Se vuoi serbarlo, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what these sessions are for. You know, and these are the times when we want to make the mistakes and we want to, have the little bobbles that we can fix. Okay. And
I hate to interrupt, but Emily, beautiful singing, and
yes,
William, we have one more singer we have to get to with such a beautiful job. I hate to stop, but Emily, thank you so much, and our pianist, thank you so much, and we'll have to move on to our next singer, Detarius. Beautiful job.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
Next up, we have Detarius Johnson. Detarius Johnson, student of Richard Hobson at Southern University. He will perform Nur will be sent to Kent by Tchaikovsky. His accompanist is Lawrence Herbert.
Bravo.
Thank you.
So how do I pronounce it? Deterras?
Gutierrez.
Deterras. Okay. So nur wer die Sehnsucht kennt. What does that mean?
Only those who are longing, only those who are longing know my pain.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? Step just a little closer to the computer for me. And if you wouldn't mind, just speak the text for me as if it were just a poem.
Nur wer die Sehnsucht kennt, weiß, was ich leide. Allein und abgetrennt von aller Freude. Seh ich ans Firmament nach jener Seite. Ach, der mich liebt und kennt, ist in der Weite.
Okay, good. So let's look at the there were a couple of things I heard, and most of them were kind of vowel sounds that were a little just not as pure as they should have been. On the word aller, you give me more there. It got a little muddied just a bit for me on that, and most of them were the sounds. They got a little muddy for me. Allein, aller, abgetrennt. So if we can start from, just give them a couple of measures, and we'll take it from there.
This is 2 before you come in.
Sehnsucht kennt, weiß, was ich leide.
Okay. Now that first note, can you prepare for that a little better and let that voice consonant really kind of sing? No, you don't want to wait till the last second to okay, so give me a little bit more of that voice consonant at the beginning of that phrase.
Okay. Wer die Sehnsucht kennt, weiß, was ich leide. Allein und abgetrennt von aller Freude. Ich ans Firmament nach jener Seite, ach, der mich lieb und kennt, ist in der Weite. Sehnsucht kennt, weiß, was ich leide.
different from alle Freude.
Okay. One thing I would like to have a bit more is dynamic contrast. Tchaikovsky was very particular about his dynamics here. If we start in that second section, sehe ich ans Firmament nach jener, not jener Seite. Ach, der mich liebte und kennt, ist ihn der Weite. Okay, so you have that mezzo forte going to pianissimo. Okay, so really use these dynamics to your benefit, because they'll help you paint a more vivid picture that you're trying to paint of this longing that no one seems to be able to understand that you're dealing with. Okay, so can we start right before sehe ich?
This is one.
2 measures.
2 measures.
Seh ich ans Firmament nach jener Seite, ob der mich liebt und kennt, ist in der Welt. Sorry.
Okay, so you're going to from the mezzo forte to the pianissimo there. I didn't mean to stop you, but I was just trying to get you to prepare for that change.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Seh ich ans Firmament nach jener Seite, der mich liebt und kennt, ist in der Weite.
Okay, can you say the word jener for me? Jener.
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 No, I don't want 2 accents. I don't want jener. Jener.
Jener.
Right, there you go. So when you have the nach jener Seite, it's not nach jener Seite, nach jener Seite. Okay. Seh ich ans Firmament. Can you repeat that?
Seh ich ans Firmament.
Nach jener Seite.
Nach jener Seite.
Ach.
Ach.
Der mich liebte und kennt.
Der mich liebt und kennt.
Ist in der Weite.
Ist in der Weite.
Right. So you really, the text is important. Okay. It's just as important as the notes. So let's go back and do this section one more time. And I really want you to concentrate on the text and on the text and the meaning of the text. And I want you to use that to inform the vocal colors that you choose. Right now it's a little, it's not necessarily kind of one note for me, but I think I can hear so many more colors in your voice that I think you're not taking advantage of. You obviously have like this, from what I'm hearing a wide palette of colors that you can take advantage of. And I want you to feel comfortable to experiment with those in this setting. So I really want you to, this time, over-exaggerate all of his dynamic markings for me.
Okay.
And the phrasing, okay? Really over-exaggerate it.
Ich ans firmament nach jener Seite, ach, der mich liebt und kennt, ist in der Weite. Wer die Sehnsucht kennt, weiß, was ich leide, allein und abgetrennt von aller Freude.
Mr. Pulliam, you're muted.
I said, bravo. So the most immediate thing that I noticed in that is how much more legato your line became. The legato was just pouring out of you. So, you know, I know as a young singer, I had that issue as well, where I would tend to want to hold things back and not just dive in and you know, I thought people would laugh if I would over-exaggerate things and to phrase things in a way that were, you know, too expressive in a sense. But, you know, we all have to grow out of that at some point. And what you just did was the legato was a lesson in legato to me, because it brought out the phrasing that was missing from the very beginning, as you just kind of let go and over, you know, if that's what it takes to say I have to over exaggerate this, do it. You know, there in my mind, there's really no such thing as an over exaggeration when it comes to communicating the stories and the text that we're so lucky to be able to do and to stand in front of an audience and present. That's our job, you know, and how lucky are we to have a job that we can do this. So from this point on, I want you to over exaggerate everything if you sing it like that, over exaggerate everything you sing, because that was beautiful. That was storytelling. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me? How much time do we have left? Do we know?
We are really at the point, but I guess one question if he has one.
Okay.
What advice? Well, I know my main goal is to make it to the Metropolitan Opera. That's just my long-term goal. But what would you say to a young singer? Just what advice would you give to a young singer that is on that road, the same road that you once traveled?
It's simple. Do the work. Do the work. Whether that work is technical. If you have some technical issues that you desire to work out, do the work to take care of those technical issues. If you have issues with memorization, do the work to remedy that and to put in the extra time to help with that memorization. I stole this motto of mine from Kenneth Overton when he said it to me several back in like 2013. I was like, okay, you can consider that stolen, but do the work so that's the important thing. Do the work, but stay ready so that you don't have to get ready was the important thing I took from that conversation with him. Because if you're doing the work to stay ready, when that last minute call from the Met comes, you're ready. You don't have to worry. You don't have to fret. You can walk into your destiny. So don't, that's the most important thing I can tell anyone is do the work. Don't look for shortcuts. There are no shortcuts, really, to doing this.
Well said, well said. Thank you again, Limmie Pulliam, for an outstanding, fabulous masterclass, words of wisdom and words of hope. And thank you to Terrence and Emily and the teacher that prepares them and accompanies. Wonderful masterclass, and we'll turn it over to the next session. If you hang around, hang around. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you all so much for your patience with us as we navigated some of those technological issues. And I hope I speak for everyone by saying that that was completely worth the wait. It was marvelous and so wonderful to see the beautiful things that are happening in our HBCU programs. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our final session before we get into feedback. And this is actually a recorded session, but the wonderful Afton Battle was kind enough to work with us and submit a recording talking about arts administration, which has been mentioned so often during today's session. And so I'm going to share my screen and start this presentation. And if Pamela would be okay, then you go ahead and do the bio.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Afton Battle graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in voice performance before attending Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, and receiving a Master of Music in Voice Performance and Pedagogy. After serving as the Program and Grants Manager for Bank Street College of Education in New York, Ms. Battle also worked with strategic consulting, did strategic consulting work with Red Clay Dance Company, the National Black Theater, the African American Policy Forum, and Brooklyn Arts and Culture firm Red Olive Consulting. She was previously the Director of Development for the New York Theater Workshop, Director of the annual campaign for America's premier ballet company, the Joffrey Ballet, and the Corporate and Foundation Relations and Individual Giving Manager for the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago, Illinois. Ms. Battle recently worked as the General Artistic Director of Fort Worth Opera and currently serves as the Vice President of Artistic Operations at the Lyric Opera of Chicago.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward. Before I do that, I think I have to stop sharing to fix something. Right, there we go.
Not a problem. While Dr. Davis is fixing something, I just wanted us to reflect on the day. Some of you have been in the forum with us since 11 a.m. Eastern time this morning, so 5.5 hours. It's been a packed 5.5 hours of so much different kinds of content, so many different speakers and initiatives and programs. And after we hear this pre-recorded, wonderful, inspiring message from Afton Battle, we're going to go into a brief feedback session, and we'd like you to start to think about your thoughts about the day, your biggest takeaway, what your personal next steps are now that you've heard all of this information about programs and collaborations with HBCUs. And we would like you to think about how you might want to continue to stay in touch with the HBCU Opera and Musical Theater Collective. So those are your homework points while you listen and reflect and allow everything to sink in from the day.
Hi, this is Afton Battle. I am currently the Vice President of Artistic Operations with Lyric Opera Chicago. I am coming to you from a very precarious place. I am currently actually in my car battling traffic, but I had a commitment to Opera America and to Pam to make a recording for the HBCU collective and cohort to hopefully share a little piece of experience, knowledge, some nuggets of wisdom, insight, but hopefully more importantly, some encouraging words. Prior to my time with Lyric Opera of Chicago, I served as General and Artistic Director with the Fort Worth Opera. My time as an arts administrator has been incredibly fast and furious. It has been a whirlwind. It has been challenging. It also has been completely rewarding. And it has been one that I hope leaves a legacy. So the things that I have to say are really, I feel like what I oftentimes say, and that's because I am very passionate about them. I am an advocate for them, and I believe that all individuals who choose to pursue a career as an arts administrator, and those of us who identify as Black, and most definitely those of us who identify as female, have a road ahead of us that is unlike any other. And because of that, I say, will always say, and have said, I encourage every single individual who chooses to pursue a career in arts administration, whether that's a development officer, marketing, ticketing, artistic director, general director, company management, you name it. Whatever your career path, whatever your career interests are, I encourage you all to pursue them relentlessly. Never give up. One company's no is another company's resounding yes. One company's quote unquote trash is another company's treasure. So be relentless, be fearless in the way that you pursue your goals. Be strategic in the way that you pursue your goals. If you fail to plan, you will plan to fail. Never walk into a situation, an opportunity, an environment without having done your due diligence, without having done your research, and without having made your plan. And I emphasize your, because whatever plan you make, whatever strategy you bake is yours. And it must be implemented and executed by you and you alone, and for you and only you. Your path is not someone else's path. Do not worry yourself with trying to compare yourself to someone else. The road that is for you is only for you. It is your pair of shoes that shall travel it. It is your head that will be held high as you traverse through it. The journey that has been designed for you by some greater power, some greater influence, whatever your beliefs are, is influenced by the journey that is designed for you by you. So don't use someone else's roadmap to determine the way that you will go. Don't use someone else's career trajectory to determine what the next steps are for you, because your trajectory might skip steps that someone else used that were crucial and critical to making and identifying what their career path would be. You are unique. As Queen Mother Beyonce says, but borrowed from Ann Tier, the founding artistic director at Black National Theater. You are unique. We, as a collective human population, are unique. Our gifts and talents are unique. They are unique to us. They are unique to you. So all of that is to say, you might fall, stumble, trip, have a misstep, but all of that is by design. And it may not look like it now, but please trust and believe that it is all meant for the empowerment, the elevation, and the success that is you. The last thing I suppose I will say is find a tribe of individuals who cheer you on at your highest, encourage you at your lowest, a tribe of individuals who will tell you the truth, a tribe of individuals who want to see you win, regardless as to where they are in the journey. A tribe of individuals who will walk with you, a tribe of individuals who will hold the door open for you and wait for you to walk through it, rather than prop it open with a brick. These individuals are in your closest, tightest inner circle. They are the ones who you trust unconditionally, undoubtedly, with your deepest, darkest aspirations. But allow that tribe to be your sounding board. Allow that tribe to be the ones who ground you. Allow that tribe to be the ones who allow you to dream big, to reach further and higher. Allow that tribe to be the one who holds you down. I hope and wish each and every one of you an abundance of success, an abundance of joy in what it is that you desire to do. I extend to you all endless grace because we all need it. We need it when others don't offer it, and we need it when we ourselves find it hard to give, not only to one another, but to give to your own self. I wish nothing but the best, all of what it is that you want, and all of what it is that you deserve. Remember that you deserve nothing less than anyone else. Be encouraged as you traverse this world and this industry, as you traverse through the career paths of applying for jobs and trying to decide, oh, am I qualified for this? Or, oh, I may not be qualified because I don't have 5 to 7 years. What I'll say to you is have the courage, have the tenacity, and have the audacity to serve that same level of audacity. So take it, grab that power, be courageous, and be relentless. I wish that I was able to share this message with you in person or via Zoom, but my job has got me pinned up in rooms all day negotiating union contracts. But I'm happy and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you for your time. Thank you to Opera America for asking me to be a part of this initiative and to be a part of this career talk. And I hope to see you all on this trail, blazing the way, lighting the path, creating the pipeline that so desperately needs to be created of young administrators, seasoned administrators, emerging administrators that look like all of us. Be good to yourselves and one another, and I hope to see you soon. Take great care.
Okay, so many gems, so many takeaways, but Pam, if you want to read some of the quotes on this slide.
Sure. So find a tribe who want to see you win, no matter where they are in the journey. Wow, that's powerful right there. Whatever plan you make, whatever strategy you bake is yours. And be relentless in the way that you pursue your goals. So we are grateful to Act in Battle for taking the time out of her busy schedule to record that. And she had all of the HBCU students on her mind and heart as she was recording that. So we want to say thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that wonderful, I say heartfelt, personal, deeply moving, expressive element that Afton Battle shared to all of us, the students, the supporters, all of us, the teachers, all of us can be moved by that and learn from that. And as I sit here and I'm this wonderful day of, I'm sorry I don't have my camera on, sorry about that. This wonderful day of outreach, resources. You know, I love the term that Poe used when she said, you know, we're going to be an element of foundation on collaboration. We want to have a foundation on collaboration. I think she was one who said that, but that's what this collective is all about. Collaborating and having something solid that we can nurture, that we can build upon, and that we collectively can move forward with our students and offer them opportunities that we have not been able to do before separately. And at this time, as Pamela said, feedback from you. If you have some feedback you want to put in the chat, what you felt about this forum, what did you gain from it? What did you think was the most reflective thought for you? What are you going to take away from this? And also upcoming events that we might have, that you might have, that you want to share with us. And if I'm missing something, Pamela and Sakinah, let me know, because I get so emotional and riled up. But I want to thank the executive committee first, which is myself, of course, I'm the president. And then we have Bianca Jackson, who wasn't as vivid on here today, but she's our publicity officer, and she did a fantastic job with the flyers and the online presence. And we thank her, and we want to thank Sakinah Davis, who is our secretary, who also organized this entire forum, along with Pamela Jones and of Opera America, and then our beautiful Alexis Rainbow for working with our student advisory committee and securing Denise Graves and Simone for us. And I don't want to forget anyone, but Gwendolyn and Patrick Daly and Russell I'm just overflustered. But anyway, thank everyone who's taken part. Pamela, you may have to step in because I get rambling.
Oh, no, you're doing great. I just wanted to also mention Dr. Sarah Kim from Norfolk State University, who also worked with the Student Advisory Committee, and Boy Rainbow and Alexis Rainbow and Sarah Kim, you all did a fabulous job because the students did a fabulous job. Hats off to all the student participation throughout the day, from, asking Benjamin Taylor, the questions that you all came up with, and then also singing on the Masterclass, participating in the breakout rooms, asking great questions this morning about careers and funding graduate school. You all have been an integral part of this whole process, and we are doing this for you. But I am so, so glad to know that you are our partners in this. You have taken the baton, and we are really excited to see all the leadership that is growing from the student group. So thank you so much for that participation today.
But I must say this, Pamela Jones of Opera America was very instrumental in getting all of us together as a collective. We started last year with about 4 or 5 schools, and Pamela was invited by Sakinah Davis, and she attended the conference forum last year, and she spoke with us and became an automatic instant advisor to us and said, I like what you're doing, how can I help? And this is why we're here today, because she stayed with us and brought more collective institutions with us to partner with us this year. And we hope to continue to grow this collective where we will have a sustainable organization that is separate from the institutions per se. That we can, build our own 501c3, do our own fundraising. The goal, and I have to say this, my dream, I was a student here with Opera South years ago when I was a student at Jackson State University. And Opera South was a company here at the university. I was able to sing with the orchestra. I learned everything here to prepare me for graduate school. We don't have that anymore. So that was my passion, was to bring that back and bring it back to more institutions. We can't do it separately. Let's come together and possibly have an HBCU Summer Opera Festival every 2 years at first. The goal is to get us together as teachers, as administrators, as students, even the orchestral students, so we can bring about the real world performance opportunities that we don't get to have with our students here. That's the goal for this, to find the resources that they can get the same type of experiences with some of the PWIs they're getting, the conservatories, but they may have to get in the summer elements, but not throughout the course of the school year. So that is what we're hoping. The next steps, we hope that you join us, you spread the word, you tell us what you think are great ideas. Share with us your thoughts and connect with us, email us, join the collective, join Opera America. As Pamela was putting out on the chat, please join Opera America. We had a free year last year, all of us, to be a part of it. And I've renewed my membership this year. And as a result of my being involved with Opera America, I joined some of the development meetings Pamela invited us to. And as a result of that, I don't know if Keith is still on here, of Opera Birmingham. We are going to have a visit from Opera Birmingham, Keith Hughes and Cody Martin from Pensacola Opera are going to come to Jackson State. I'm inviting all of the area schools to come to do a Masterclass in career talk, but that's because of my involvement with Opera America. That this unfolded. I wasn't supposed to talk about that, but I had to. But any more closing remarks, because Sakinah and Pamela know that I can go on with the passion talk, but anybody else help me out.
I just wanted to let everyone know that our student who is over our social media has been putting information up for students for our group me, and we are receiving members, but we have space for lots of other members to join, and they're joining today. We're excited about that, and we'll be meeting on Zoom on Sunday. So if you have other students, just send me an email or whatever, but we're looking forward to getting lots of students in our student organization. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sakinah, do you have another survey after this session, or?
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience and for your attendance today. We had a couple of surveys that were to be done after each session, but we got so excited, so we didn't have as much time to put those surveys in. And thank you, Dr. Professor Brown, for helping out with that. So I do have a link to an overall forum survey that I'm putting in the chat right now. So if you could please click on that link and fill out the survey for the end of today's session. We really appreciate your feedback. We took the feedback into account that we got last year, and thankfully we're able to make it so much better. So we'd love to keep moving forward. So please, your feedback is very valuable, even if you were only here for one session. Please send your feedback, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you next year. And again, on behalf of Xavier University of Louisiana, College of Arts and Sciences, and the Department of Music, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.